And it's far from TFC, the only club in Major League Soccer on this side of the border that is having its fair share of struggles. There's some drama that is developing more so, and I think when you're in a certain circle or you're not following MLS as close per se, you don't necessarily see it, but every now and then there is something on social media or something in the news that goes viral. And in this particular instance, it was a tweet that basically summed up how a lot of CF Montreal supporters are feeling, and it came from Fred Charest, basically saying, the captain, I don't have tactics. Lozada, I don't have players. Renard, I don't have a budget. Joey Saputo, I don't have money. And the fan, I don't have hope. And that was obviously seen by many. And it wasn't done there because Arcadio Marcuzzi, who used to run the media operation there, sorry, that was a huge spider directly in front of me.
I saw
Get
that.
out of the way. Yeah, it needs to not be in front of my camera anymore. It can just crawl away over there.
Left it there.
Arcadio Marcuzzi is just about Halloween. Quote tweeted that, and we're going to show you all of it in one go here. And this is where I have to make sure that I remember how to read the language again and make sure that we're not mistranscribing this. But he said this type of implosion is inevitable when you stretch the rubber band to the maximum systematically season after season. You get an approach of austerity that is not only harmful effects on the pitch, but at every level of the club, and suffers from an untenable lack of resources. Adding, the budgetary complacency with which CF Montreal is conducted is unviable in an MLS which evolves at great speed and in a market where ambition and excellence are the best marketing. A lack of ambition, vision, and interest, at the top of the pyramid is unacceptable. Lastly, there is a huge amount of talent, passion, and love for the coat of arms at every level of this club. That could also be translated as crest. People who perform small miracles on a daily basis with starving means and conditions. They, as supporters, players, staff, and sports management, deserve a lot better. Wow. That is a lot from someone who knows the ins and outs of the club. Oliver Platt, your reaction to the initial comment and the threaded response?
I won't go into too much depth here because I know I'm going to get torched for this, but there is a solution to this, which is called the Canadian Premier League, where the costs are substantially lower and player development, which Montreal are all about, is the big prime aim of the league. You still get an opportunity to play in CONCACAF. You're still competing for the Canadian Championship. I don't think it's something that will happen in the near future. But look, if you don't want to play with Atlanta and Miami and Toronto and the teams that spends the level they're spending and spends to a level that, they can't recoup that money. They're losing money and taking the franchise valuation as the real kind of benefit of being in Major League Soccer. If you don't want to do that, there is another option. Maybe somewhere down the line that could be interesting. But for now, yeah, it's always going to be difficult for this club to compete with the top teams in the league on the budget they currently operate under.
It's very interesting, Oliver Platt. First of all, CF Montreal, their setup there have done exceptionally well, taking things to their limit and being able to be competitive and achieve. Last season was outstanding for this side. I was critical of them when the season began because they didn't replace. They had a lot of money come in from player sales, and they simply didn't replace them adequately enough, leaving a very good manager in Hernan Losada, playing with an incomplete hand. So the financial commitments and what it's going to take to compete in MLS 3.0, or are we at 4.0, wherever we're at right now, it's going to require more. Is Joey Saputo and company willing to go that far to keep up with the Joneses? Because, there are some clubs who are inevitably going to leave behind. MLS is going to make some changes in the offseason. There's going to be a push for clubs to spend more. So what is the motivation of Saputo and CF Montreal right now? Are they willing to dig in and give this club more money so they can go on to regularly compete rather than just bringing in young players and a really good manager and hoping for the best? Meanwhile, resources and players and everyone involved is stretched to the limit? Or is Oliver right? Is there another solution? If you want to stay in the game and the development of Canadian football, then are you willing to potentially sell your club for what, $400-500 million? There are markets out there. Vegas wants a team, or I think they're getting a team. Sacramento, Tampa. Go through a number of American markets that are like, yeah, gimme. We would love an MLS team. If they're not top of the queue in terms of expansion? Is relocation the way forward? You can cash in a lot of money. You can pay a fraction of that to have a Canadian Premier League club and come in and compete with Canadian teams where maybe there's some more appeal. I don't know. Only fans in that market can say whether they'd be more up for going to games when you're playing rivals, Ottawa, Toronto, Halifax, or is there something about Charlotte coming into town, or Houston or Columbus that really gets you going? It's an interesting question. I think it falls with ownership. Where do they see this going? Do they still want to be part of the MLS family, and are they willing to pay to fit in with the rest, which is only going in one direction? It's costing more, or do they decide to make a big fat profit off it and turn that maybe into other ventures? I don't know. It's something that I never really thought of until Ollie brought it up, but perhaps it's a conversation worth having.
I don't know how to add to that without getting myself in trouble as well, so I'll just blame Oliver Platt, and we will talk about the Vancouver.
At some point, you need to make a decision about how you're going to operate.
Yeah, I mean, like, I understand there's not going to be people in Montreal on first reaction to that idea. Like, they want to compete with Toronto, right? Like,
of course they do.
Would be a very difficult thing to swallow to say, let's go in a different league in a totally different direction. But down the line, maybe you think about it a little bit more. I don't know. I think there's some logic, some sense there, but it would obviously be a big jump to make.
The only reason why you can make that jump, though, Ollie, is because the owners have said year after year they're losing money, and a considerable amount of it. And they went and recouped and made a lot of money through player sales, last off season, and they didn't put that back into the team. That, for me, told a big story. And then when Arcadio comes out, and look, this isn't me or you or Adam saying this. This is someone that worked for the club in a role where he understands how the club functions. And if he's equating it to the elastic being stretched as far as it can, what does that mean? That's not us saying that. That's him.
Yeah. And this isn't someone selling tickets to get into the venue. This is someone who's working with the first team and management consistently. And anyways, there's no solution to this matter right now. I do love that Ollie throws that in. There's going to be big questions for CF Montreal, especially if the trend that they've been on continues. And the supporters certainly deserve a little bit better than what they've been seeing. To the Whitecaps, the last team, the last Canadian MLS side. I'll get that out eventually. Just 2 points out of fourth place, in sixth in the table right now, but they have quite the hill to climb in their 3 remaining matches up against St. Louis, who is in first and has the conference number 1 seed clinched already. Third place, Seattle. Fourth place, LAFC. When you look at the table, Ollie, and the upcoming schedule, are they at risk of missing the playoffs here?
No, I don't think so. Like, firstly, there's a bit of a drop off because, again, the bar in MLS is as low as it is right now. It's between 9th and 10th. So I just can't see that. I know that they have a difficult run in here in terms of St. Louis, LAFC, Seattle. On paper, it's difficult, but I just don't know that anyone in that Western Conference is kind of, apart from, St. Louis, particularly in their home games, like, is anyone great rather than just good? Like, you look at the points per game, like Seattle 1.48, LAFC 1.45, like, they're not that much detached from kind of 7th, 8th, 9th place themselves. So as much as it may look like a difficult run in on paper and a bit of risk there, I think with 2 home games for Vancouver, I just don't really see it.
Gareth, what do you think?
Ooh, they're moving in the wrong direction. They've conceded 10 goals over the last 4 games, and they haven't won over that span. They play the 1st, 3rd, and 4th place teams. LAFC has traditionally owned the Whitecaps. It's a very difficult run in. And there's not, look, if they can win those games, it can go up and get into top 3 potentially. But there's a scenario here where they can miss outright. A lot of it depends on some average teams below them, whether they can go on and win their games. But Vancouver's form has put them in an unenviable spot right now. They're really going to have to rely on Ryan Gauld and Brian White because the goalkeeper hasn't been playing great. Some of the new players that come in, it hasn't been as seamless as you once thought. I think they're exhausted coming back from this long away stretch where they started it so well and kind of limped home to the finish line here, it's going to be very difficult. Very quickly, I know that they're trying to push this Batman and Robin nickname for Brian White and Ryan Gauld. He can do better than that. Like Ryan and Brian sounds great. R&B, that works. Or the best one out there is White Gauld. White Gauld. Like it's just there. Batman and Robin, come on. What year are we?
You got a gift.
White Gauld.
He has that, most certainly, and he has spoken. Take that, Whitecaps fans, and run with it. That one's for free. We won't charge you for that.